Hey, Jordan with TYT, still at Foster Buds here in Portland, Oregon. I'm here with Angela, who you have a really interesting story. Kind of makes me think of my story, which we'll get to later. But you have been using cannabis to treat an illness, and it's working for you.
Yes. My name is Angela Valdes, and I am a longtime business owner here in Portland. My husband and I started a tea shop and now a tea company back in 2003. So I've been working with chronic illness my entire adult life. I was diagnosed with lupus when I was 18 out of high school, and I lived with it for 18 years. The first 9 years.
Just so my audience, because some might not know what lupus is.
Oh, lupus is, well, they told us at first it was basically like the body attacking itself, and now they're finding out there's a lot more science that they don't understand. Mm-hmm. And so we went from, in 97, me having a diagnosis of you're never going to live to be 30, you're never going to get married, and you're never having children, and you need to come to terms with this now, to telling my doctors I'm cured. They didn't know what caused it. We think maybe some neurological issues genetically have been a result of my body reacting that way. But I had migraines from the time I was 8, very bad physical pain my entire life, and I've been on a lot of Western medicines. So I'm a patient who has been an American that's trusted every system I've been put into wholeheartedly, taken the pills, done my homework as far as exercising and eating, and it still wasn't enough. So after 9 years of Western medicine, I was in remission, and I asked my doctors if I could go off of all of the medications, and they agreed. And I turned to cannabis. And from there, I had a couple babies and had to stop taking cannabis during those times. And my migraines and the lupus was so bad that it blocked my vision and my hearing. So there was a couple months I was breastfeeding and having a toddler, and I had my husband taking care of our tea shops and our tea company, and I couldn't see or hear. So it's something where I've come from the depths of despair when it comes to chronic pain and have fought for my life for it. And cannabis is one of the biggest things that's helped me.
And tell me, in terms of cannabis, because I'm learning now, there's just like a lot of different kinds and that kind of do different things. If you want sleep, if you want relief from pain, these kinds of things. How specifically has it helped you? I know you're not a scientist, but you have migraines and other things with lupus. What has it done for you specifically to alleviate those?
Well, one of the things that I did is I just started smoking it because that's what people did back in 2006, 7, and 8. There wasn't a lot of information about the Rick Simpson oil, and so I tried that and noticed immediate pain relief. A lot of it was the nerve pain and the jolting and the extreme swollen joints I was having would go away from smoking with like a water pipe. So I got my medical card, my medical marijuana card here, and I started working with my grower to grow strains that were specific for my headaches and for the problems I was having with my lupus symptoms.
And what is a grower for those who aren't from here?
Well, a medical grower is someone who specializes in growing cannabis. So what they do is they really focus on the plant to make sure that the right chemical constituents come out of the plant. So the person who is consuming it, either in vaporizing, eating it as an edible, if it's baked, or in a raw form, they'll be getting the most cannabinoids and other types of things that come out of the plant. I actually went from smoking to vaporizing. I tried vape pens for a while. I've used the Simpson oil and found a lot of, and it's not called the Simpson oil, but I've found a lot of relief from that on a daily basis, a tiny amount of that, and I ingest it. I have no side effects. I do receive some side effects if I eat edibles, so I've been very cautious to warn people that you really need to understand your body's limitations and don't put yourself in a situation you'll feel uncomfortable, because I was terrified to try cannabis. I grew up as a conservative Republican. I went to college at a private Christian college. I was told cannabis...
And now you're living in Portland.
Yeah, I was told to fear cannabis. It was illegal, don't ever do it. And so it took a lot for me to be someone to try it. And I am someone that can say, I wish I could have told my dad sooner about it, because he had epilepsy from the time he was 18. And he died 2 years ago having a seizure in his sleep. And he knew I was taking cannabis and was finding a lot of results in my pain relief, but he was still too scared to try it because he was a conservative who really believed that if it says it's illegal federally, we should follow the law. And I think that is a reason that he's not alive today, because he was trying to be such a patriot. He was someone who wanted to serve in our military and never got a chance because he had epilepsy. So he was someone who was a true American patriot as far as they could be in their heart. And he believed the system was right. And so that's why he chose not to follow it. It's that social stigma that may have led to him never trying. And I want to stand up and make sure no one else is afraid of it. And that's why I feel like the social stigma has to come down. And Bernie Sanders has been speaking out against it. And that's why I'm voting for him for sure.
And did your father try Western medicine for epilepsy and get any relief in his lifetime?
No, he had many seizures almost daily. He had a lot of grand mal seizures. I did not realize growing up in the next room how horrifying epilepsy is for people who have it. But he was literally having the fight of his life every time he had a seizure. And I didn't understand that growing up. His brain would take quite a few minutes for him to reset, and it was extremely jarring. So imagine being in a public place and having a seizure. So he tried everything they told him to take, and he dealt with many bad side effects. His gums were destroyed, his teeth were destroyed because of Dilatin and different medications they put him on. He would go through some really bad seizure episodes in trying to change medications to find a better fit because it would stop working. And the whole time I'm taking cannabis and having great results and starting to thrive, and he was overworked and tired, and he fell asleep face down and couldn't survive the seizure. So it's one of those things where I'm going to speak out now as much as I can, because there could be another David out there that's terrified to try it, and maybe his granddaughter, maybe his daughter has been smoking weed, and he's thought, well, it's not hurting her, but I would never try it. I hope they will think about it. I hope they will consider it, because I don't think my dad would have died if he knew that it would save him. And I believe now it would have saved him for sure. I think it would have stopped seizures for sure.
Well, I think something that struck me is just you saying the word weed, even though I've partaken many a times, society has even made the term weed sound negative and criminalized and these kinds of things. And older school, we know older people in politics, whether it's the cannabis issue or anything else, are more traditional and closed-minded to new things, particularly if they see it's really a lot of young people kind of leading the charge. So for you said you're going to do as much as you can. How do you kind of get your message, which a lot of people will connect when it's about a human and it's a human interest kind of thing? How do we get that to more places? Because for every time you say a story, a Chris Christie and all these know-it-all non-scientists, politicians will tell you why you're the exception.
It creates industry, it creates jobs, it creates money, revenue. Look at California. Look at Colorado. What they've done.
Yeah. Well,
money they
hey,
have.
Sue, let me just stop you right there. You say it's going to come down the road. You know when it may come down the road? When I'm gone. It's not going to come while I'm here.
I think it takes a special kind of courage that I myself am in the process of trying to cultivate, even at this moment. Because I've been keeping a collection of all my journals from all of my years of pain. I've seen myself go through many different mindsets, from fear to acceptance to rage to understanding. And it's something that is consistently fluid in everybody's lives. And I think that if we can be more accepting of the fact that when people are in pain, it's not what we see in a snapshot is not what they're really experiencing all the time. We could see the moment of relief and believe they're fine. We could see their worst moment and think that it's always going to be that way. And what my dad taught me with his epileptic seizures is he would have a seizure and he would still be smiling and trying to cheer us up, even though he couldn't remember his name at the moment. And that kind of dedication to his own inner drive to survive is definitely something I carry in myself. And so I would love to just shout from the rooftops anywhere and to anyone, guess what? I'm cured. Because the truth is that I am cured. And I've been shocked. My doctors are shocked. My dentist is shocked. We can't believe I have a healthy white T cell count. I have healthy antibodies. I am so healthy that I've never been this healthy. And it's amazing to me. I'm willing to be someone to be studied and to offer information up to others. I just don't know how to do that. Do you know what I mean? And it does take courage, because I've had people say, just write a book. Just tell everyone your story. And it's not that simple. I mean, I think I could tell someone my story, but for me to type it myself just takes a lot of courage. And the more that people accept that others are using cannabis and finding relief, the easier it gets every day for me to speak up a little more too. Because I don't want to come across to Chris Christie and have to say, well, how am I cured? Like, explain this to me, and have him say, Well, I'm not accepting that. You must have done something behind the scenes. Must have done what? To be cured of lupus, the one thing that people say was impossible to be cured of. I mean, I'm 37. I have 2 children. I have a wonderful tea company, a wonderful husband. I beat every single thing that my first doctor told me I would not survive. And I refuse to accept that other people are going to have to live a life of pain. And that if we go back, if we have someone like Hillary Clinton come into presidency and she says, oh, I just don't believe it, let the states decide. I think that it's going to get harder for me to keep my mouth shut, because I can't keep living this life and crossing things off my bucket list, being cured, and know that other people in chronic pain are sitting by and in Portland, next door, down the street, and they can't get the same kind of care because they're not speaking out like I am, or because their hair color is darker, and so they're stigmatized and they're like ostracized from the opportunity to get care. It's infuriating as a patient and as a human, and I, as a supporter of Bernie Sanders, who stood up for humans in every form and every color by voting for the Affordable Care Act, by supporting single-payer health care, by understanding that cannabis is not something to be feared.
Too many Americans have seen their lives destroyed because they have criminal records as a result of marijuana use. That is wrong. That has got to change.
We need our doctors to stop being worried about being sent to jail or being charged with something because they're helping patients who are looking into a very healthy, I would say very miraculous plant that we've been hiding from the world, and we need to start accepting it. The amount of happiness quotient that would go up in this country would be unbelievable if people could live to their potential instead of living at what I would say was like a fraction of the life they're actually wanting to put out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and from a human level, I just want to know, because I actually have, I don't have lupus that I know of, but I've had some issues with energy and fatigue and sleep for many years. It sounds to me like you kind of had a rebirth. I mean, you were a woman in her late 20s, maybe early 30s, were really, this was stopping you from having children. So you were kind of living in a quasi, prison. You couldn't do all the things that naturally a woman would want to do, or a man if he wants to have a family. How is your energy now? How is your stamina with 2 children? Are you able to do more active things just because not only your symptoms have been relieved, but are you able to now do more than you used to be able to do?
Yeah, well, when I was diagnosed with lupus, I was 18. I was training to be a cheerleader in college. So I was working my body very hard, and I wasn't eating properly. I ate a lot of candy bars for snacks. I didn't really take care of myself like I should have. And I also really didn't have medical advice to help me gain weight. I was always it was like, oh, she's skinny, it's okay, she's fine. It was never like, Angela, how many calories are you eating a day? Let's work on this. You should have at least 10 pounds more there. So it was kind of something that was just ignored. And when I got really sick, they just kind of thought, oh, she's whittling away, and there's nothing we can do. It changed my relationships with everyone, which changed my energy level. I couldn't cheer. I was supposed to do low impact things from then on, which is very different from going from a life of dancing for hours a day and suddenly not, being told to lightly swim because you could aggravate symptoms. And the swollen joints were so bad that I couldn't drive sometimes. I couldn't move my wrists or my shoulders. And so it was very debilitating for me. I managed to have a pretty good life through it in college, fighting in a rebellious way. I was raised to follow the rules. I was raised as a conservative Christian. I went to a private Christian college, majoring in political science and broadcasting. I went to an internship in Washington, D.C. With the Leadership Institute. It was with a conservative nonprofit, and I worked in the Print and Media Center, training politicians how to stay on talking points. So yes.
I can't stand talking about.
I immersed myself in my belief system, in the political belief system I was raised. I believed every bit of it. One voice, one vote. I believed it. And so I carried that moral core with me. But when I got to D.C., we were going to war in Iraq, and I saw a few things while I was there that just just shredded me as a person. I couldn't understand how we could be hurting another country, and it didn't feel like we were liberating Iraq. It looked like we were conquering them, and it felt like that to me from what I was hearing and the way that we were all responding as a bunch of conservatives. So when I came back from back to Portland, my husband asked me if I wanted to open up a tea shop with him instead and do something different with my life. So I blacked out media and politics altogether. I came to Portland, and after a few years of being here, started meeting the most incredible people. And what it was is I lived a very sheltered life and didn't meet people outside of that particular lifestyle, and because of it I didn't know there was more to it than that. And so when I came back, I blacked everything out. I ended up becoming a Democrat later on. I realized that I really stood up for environmental issues. I was very angry in DC when they were talking about environmental issues, and I noticed that inside me there was like this bubbling surface. Why are we not caring? Because the Bible tells me we're supposed to be stewards of the land. So I mean, I had all these little core beliefs that were pulling out of my conservative values that just weren't meeting, the need wasn't met when it came to the platform for the Conservative and Republican Party. And so I ended up deciding that what was best for me was to just give love out to the world. So I focused on tea. I made tea for people every day, like seriously, cups of tea, working my tail off through the physical chronic pain. And a lot of those people introduced me to cannabis here in Oregon, and that's how I found out about it. I would say that the biggest thing that changed my life and the core values I had was being in DC. It was like being in a crucible, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of Fox News, circa 2000.
Sorry. I'm sorry, but I worked there for 5 minutes. So.
Oh man, it changes you to your core. And I mean, I came back and my family did not understand. No one understood why I wasn't saying, I'm not a Christian now. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a Republican. I don't know what I am, but I still believe everyone matters. And I don't know why the political party I'm a part of doesn't seem to understand that. So I chose to continue that path, and that path led me on a very healthy path because I was no longer afraid to talk to people who were talking about cannabis. I was actually talking with people who were very different from me. I learned a lot from people who were bisexual and lesbian and homosexual that I had no idea. And I had a cousin who was homosexual. So there's, some things you talk about in these communities, but most of the time you don't accept the people. You just glaze over the subject and just say, well, that's them. And I became a person that wanted to be transparent. I didn't want to glaze over anything anymore. I see people, I see them for the color of their skin, and I see what their struggles are, and I'm tired of ignoring them. I'm tired of them being stomped on and standing next to someone and knowing that a cop could walk by and choose to target my friend because she's Hispanic, and I'm the one with the medical card and the joint in my pocket. That kind of stigma just has to fall. And the only way it's going to fall is if people like me stand up. And I know it takes a lot more courage than I've been giving out because I've done things like volunteering for Bernie 2016 TV. It's a group of volunteers who support Bernie Sanders. I've done things like working in groups behind the scenes for delegates for Bernie Sanders and on the national arena, and also with the Oregon delegates, because I want people to know that we are very productive. Cannabis patients are very productive. In fact, more people are cannabis patients than others realize. And the reason we don't say anything is because we don't want the Chris Christies to start running their mouth over someone that they don't understand.
Well, two things. I think A, your father would be very proud. And B, I think people in D.C. sitting in cubicles or on Capitol Hill, slowly having their souls die, are going to really like your message. So I appreciate you talking to us.
Thank you very much. It was nice to meet you.